Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Omni Athlete. You're here because, like us, you believe that sport is a vehicle for elevating global consciousness. Do you know that elevating consciousness through sport only matters if it actually helps you to compete at your highest level? We created this show to empower your performance with the wisdom and techniques of the world's highest achieving mind, body, and spirit competitors. Okay, so today's guest is an integrative rehabilitation therapist, OMPowered athlete, and consciousness entrepreneur who's on a mission to bring mindfulness to the urban experience. Her drive to synthesize the intersection points of so many different healing and movement modalities for her community sprung from the ashes of a devastating head-on car collision she was the passenger in the summer before her sophomore year of college. While her doctors were convinced that she may never walk again, let alone compete as an athlete anywhere close to the way she had been accustomed to, a small voice within her told her that she would walk again, and despite refusing all medication and painkillers, she began the process of rehabbing herself through swimming, biking, nutrition, and ultimately running. She would eventually go on to become a triathlete and author her master's thesis on optimal states of being through the lenses of sport, spirituality, and science, laying the foundation for the healing work she's done over the last 25 years. It's my pleasure to introduce to Omni Athlete, the founder of OMPowered, Jennifer Kartiganer. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Hi there. How you doing?
Great. I'm great. I'm super energized. This interview's been a long time coming. We've been playing phone tag, so to speak, with the interviews. So I think the first place to start, as I was researching for this interview, one of the things that came up was the wisdom of the body. And I'd like to kick us off there with not only what your experience was like in what life was like before maybe you were able to tune into that voice and after, but just what that means to athletes and people in general.
Yeah. So really interestingly, before my car accident, I was really more identified with being an academic, very much in my mind, because that was what was recognized and respected in my family dynamic and in school. And I was that person who really just wanted to excel in whatever they tried. And that was what was being applauded as being something amazing. And my physical pursuits were like, oh, that's nice, but it wasn't anything special. So, but I had these moments in my life starting really young where that wasn't working for me. Like there were these like amazing dramas and traumas in my family history and in life that I needed to turn inward really quickly. And so there was something really familiar about it when I had my car accident and I was sitting there and everybody's telling me that I'm not going to walk. But there was this voice that felt so familiar. And it said, look, like you may be the good girl and want to please everybody and want to like be the best at everything. But this is something that you know beyond you. There's something beyond you that's telling me, hey, look, you're going to walk again. Trust it. And so that still small voice, I think a lot of us tend to quiet down because it's not what social norms expect of us or what our families hold up in reverence. And so I really want people to understand like that still small voice is wise and it is true and it should be the thing that drives you because it's you, it's the essence of you. And so I think that on my life journey, I love it all because I've had times when I've had to rely on that voice to get me through times when my conscious self had no idea what was happening next.
Can you reflect back on the first few moments, especially after the accident? Because I think, whether it has to happen this way or not, it always feels like those moments of intense trauma in our lives really give us these beautifully, at times painful, but real opportunities to see the world in a context we've never seen before. Can you reflect back on what were those first couple, almost, this is the wrong word for it, but small wins that you experienced in listening to that voice? Because I think a lot of us, athletes, even coaches, just people in general, we have a hard time letting that snowball start to move, right? Once it starts to move, we can really gather momentum, but there's a challenge in being able to glimpse the small wins that we can get along the way.
Absolutely. And we need to honor those glimpses. And some of them are so small. It's amazing. like when we've been able to accomplish something, even when our minds may have doubted it, right? And so for me, I knew when I was laying in that hospital bed, because I was the worst one injured, that I didn't have to take care of anybody else. It's like, oh, I got this. Like, if this is the worst everybody is, we're cool. Like, this is not life ending. It's life altering, but not life ending.
Yeah.
And I was laying there, and the surgery happened. They put a bicycle chain in my hip, you know, pretty mobile. And I was wondering, what is it going to take for me to get out of this bed? Right. And so I literally asked my doctor, what is it going to how are you going to get me out of this hospital? Because there's no way I'm staying in this hospital. Because to me, this hospital, I knew somewhere that I was never going to walk again. Like, I just knew I was just sitting there atrophying. Wow. And I said, what can I do? The physical therapy they were giving me was negligible, if any, right? Like, they had someone come in and like go, oh, are you okay? I'm like, yes. Okay, walk out. Right. And so he said, hey, if you can get your leg about this far off the bed, I will let you go home tomorrow. I'm like, shoot, okay, there's a goal, right? And this is when my athletic mind came in to have. It's like, you give me a goal, teach, and I'll go, oh, okay. Yeah. And I was a nerd, and I loved science, and I understand that there's a mind-body connection. Like, I knew if I thought it, I could reconnect the muscles that may have been injured or cut during the whole experience. And so I looked down at my left foot, and I said, okay, well, let's start simple. And I would think, can I wiggle my right toe? Wow. And it wouldn't wiggle. Like, there was no connection. I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay, so how do I get it to wiggle? I took my right foot and I brought it over because I was completely paralyzed on my left side. And I started to think, wiggle big toe. And I took my right foot and would wiggle my big toe. And that kept me up all night, because like, I was on a mission to get out of that hospital. I'm squirrely as it is. Like, for me to stay in the hospital bed was not happening. Even I was always in so much pain. It was crazy. I was like, I'm out. Like, just get me out of here. And so there was more time. And to fast forward, I was able to finally wiggle my big toe, which was like the win. Like, you asked me the first small win. That was it. Because I was like, okay, I'm not paralyzed. Yeah. I'm right. Like, my gut, right. And so I went on for another 36 to 48 hours, and I finally was able to move all my toes and sort of flex and extend my ankle and my foot, right? And then I took my right foot and I said, okay, lift. And so that was a little painful because the injury was at my hip, because my thigh broke out of the hip, the pelvis, and took off a little piece. And so it wasn't really, so that was painful, but it moved, and pain meant I was alive. God damn it, I could feel. It was so good. And so about 48 hours later, I was finally able to get my leg off about this much, and it was like 3 a.m. And I'm like calling the nurse, like, I did it, like, get me out of here. And the nurse comes running into the hospital room and says, what's wrong? I said, I'm out. Doctor said, I'm out. She's like, look, that's great. And the doctor's not here yet. Like, he's not going to 7. Finally gets there. So that was my first small win, and they didn't let me out right away. Because then, they needed to teach me, like, I had to be in a wheelchair for a while. And, it was a little great. But you asked for the first small win, like that moment when I knew I wasn't paralyzed, I knew that I had it in the bag.
So what's so interesting right there is that the notion of goals, right? Giving ourselves a goal. And so what pinged for me as you shared that story was I think I'm probably guilty of it on the show in terms of how I frame these questions sometimes, but I think goal setting gets a bad rap at times, right? Because so much of what has become the culture of sport, right, is we're setting goals and that's the only thing that matters. But there's a flip side to it, and I think you just illuminated that. So what is that? This is kind of a giant question that we can take big, and then feel free to take it small too. So why did the goal make such a difference then? And how can athletes use it in the right context so that it's not about I'm only worthwhile if I achieve my goal, but about motivating and moving us forward?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. And so fast forward now, because I knew, like, why didn't I end up in the wheelchair and why did so many others? And then I started wondering how many people are in wheelchairs or limit their abilities or their performance because of what somebody else told them, a coach told them, a doctor told them, a teacher told them. And that became like really important to me to discover what that looked like. And so now here I am in graduate school studying the psychodynamics of sports, health, and healing. And of course, that's very intimate and personal for me. And so I started studying it through my three favorite lenses: sport and the peak performance, a lot of people know as a zone or flow; spirituality, which at that time was very related to Zen and Buddhism and meditation in the Eastern traditions because of all the healing that practices that they have; and science. The nerds still existed. And so what I discovered that in order to be at your optimal state of being in any of those domains required you to have a goal, as like a vision, an experience of like, what does that look like for me? Not for you, not for anybody else, but what does it look like for me? Yeah. And by having that goal, that vision, right? Everybody is now starting to talk about thoughts become things. They're real. Like the more you think about it, that's what's actually going to start happening. All that self-talk. So when you have a goal, it kind of makes it exciting because you can design your life to be anything. So as an athlete, I'm looking for that peak performance. I was looking to be able to run after being told I couldn't walk. So I ran half marathons and triathlon. And each time I did it, it was such a victory. But I could only do that because I imagined it to be so. And that's true with like, what do you want in your life? How do you want your life to look? It's yours to design. No one else is going to put the picture up for you. And so I found out that when I looked at all these lenses, that there were these 5 qualities and 5 stages to all of it. Yeah. And by doing it, you become filled with grace. And it's an acronym. So you feel grounded, relaxed, aware, centered, and empowered when you've set your goals, you've done your research, you've taken action, fully committed to it, and then take a moment for evaluation. How did I go? How did it do? Do I still want what's next? Or do I want to shift my goals? So it's a really beautiful beacon. And the more you do it, the less you actually have to actively do it because all the filters go there. And then you're like all of a sudden one day you wake up and go, whoa, I'm here. Like, this is awesome. I got a lot more to do. I got to think of more that I can do and put out in the world. So goals for me are like integral and foundational to almost anything, whatever your dreams are, whether it be in sport, whether it be in business, whether it be just in life and full heart satisfaction.
So we're going to springboard off of that question into a slight left turn, but it's very much related. So before I ask my question, I would love for you to define to our audience, just so we put it in the right context, integrative rehabilitation specialist. What does that mean within the context of what we're talking about right now?
That's great. Another great question, of course. So what I came to understand as I was evolving as a professional, I started way back as a personal trainer. And as I got more education and more experience, I realized that I wasn't really your traditional therapist, and I wasn't your traditional personal trainer, and I wasn't your, traditional anything. And anytime you put a label on it, along comes all of these assumptions and expectations that I may not fulfill or I may fulfill, and that got in the way of the work I wanted to do with people. So I found that I had an ever-evolving, changing title, right? And health coach was one, and then everybody started adopting it. I mean, because remember, I started this work back in the 80s. Yeah. So, some of these titles now that seem so common weren't in existence. But as they became more common, I needed to shift.
Yeah.
So integrative rehabilitation therapist is exactly what you might think. I integrate a bunch of different trainings, a bunch of different certifications, a bunch of different approaches, and I have this wonderful toolbox. And people come to me for performance, for injury rehabilitation, for acute and chronic pain, and in the last several years in my private practice were with illness. And how do we use the same toolbox, maybe different in order to be able to help them rehab their life? Now, rehab their life doesn't necessarily mean like going into your PT person. It means like going in and like checking out, like, does this still serve me? And if it doesn't, let's find something that does. and don't listen to what everybody else is saying. Listen to what you're saying. Listen to what your heart is saying, right? A lot of your speakers have been talking about like the posture of the heart posture, or the wisdom of the body. But there's a term called chokhmat, which is like wisdom of the heart. And so we all need to learn to drop into that space and go forward from there. So integrative rehabilitation therapy, basically like sitting with someone, listening to the words that they're using so I can see where my access point is to actually do the transformative work that needs to happen to get them out of whatever discomfort they're in.
That's beautiful. And what so when you work with somebody, and I'm going to put this in the context of athletes, because the reason I wanted you to frame that space specifically is I think as athletes, a lot of times we undervalue the trauma and the layers of just what our body takes on in a effort to protect us as we go through life, even successfully as athletes, right? As we compete, there are layers that get compounded that a lot of times we just don't know are there. And coaches, peers, friends, parents, whatever, like they don't know necessarily that they've added to it. So when you work with athletes, what are the things, the patterns you recognize in terms of kind of stripping away some of the trauma? And I'm trying to find a better word for it, because it's not always trauma in the sense that so many of us know it, but these hooks that stick to us. What are the patterns that you see?
That's an interesting question in that it depends on which angle you're looking at it from, right? So if you're looking at it in regards to performance, right? Like I've had several athletes who came to me and they were always second, right? They came in like they were so good, they're so trained during the training sessions. They would be the top of their game. They would be the fastest on the track. They would, whatever that is. And then always in races, they would fall back second, right? So what was happening on the track that was not allowing them to actually push through to be the winner, to be as fast as they were in training?
Yeah.
So from that lens, there's something about not a fear of failure, but a fear of success. Because once you achieved that success, you had to maintain it because now all eyes are on you. So there's something really fun about being just under the radar, right? Like you're just good enough, but you're not the one to watch.
Yeah.
So what is it about that for the individual that is playing itself out in that dynamic? In regards to injury rehabilitation, that one is really difficult. So I had the opportunity to work in a experience called the Performance Enhancement Group in different universities across the country, where we took all the injured athletes from the various sports and we had a weekly meeting. Because when you are in college and you've identified as an athlete, because to get to that level, you've probably done it since you were really young. Your entire identity is wrapped up in being an athlete and being that particular athlete and on that team. And that's usually your whole social network too. And it's probably also the place that you played out all your emotions, right? Football players with their aggression and whatever else comes out on the playing field or the pool.
Yeah.
And so how do we then teach these athletes that, because athletes being so connected with their bodies, they're either really connected with their emotions or they've been taught to totally repress their emotions. So I find that's a huge pattern, both in the performance piece and in the injury piece. And so what I'm seeing even now fast forwarding to all the work that I'm doing in the corporate environment, in the medical environment, and in the sports environment, is that the emotion piece is it can either break us or make us, depending on if you've been taught how to healthfully experience them and express them, and when to actually let them come in and when to park them, right? Because athletes are really good about parking their emotions, but what they forget is when to pick them up again so that they can be fully processed.
There's such a naturally as athletes, we have this skill to compartmentalize, right? And I think sport is this amazing vehicle for teaching this, because as a coach, as an athlete, as a performer, I need to be able to compartmentalize a moment, right? I need to let go of a moment. Maybe letting go is a better word than compartmentalizing, but most of us, to your point, do compartmentalize. What do you help athletes, individuals do to see that they are either putting the emotions down or that they're not picking them back up once they have? Like, what's the mechanism for helping them to see maybe where they're not in alignment the way they think they should be, or that they are?
That's complicated.
Yeah.
It's complicated, and it's not.
Yeah.
Because now let's go back to the wisdom of the heart. The heart posture, as one of your interviewers talked about, and I've listened to so many of your interviews, I can't remember which one. Sorry. And just the wisdom of the body in particular. And that's where we get rid of the mind, because the mind has these graces and also these challenges of forgetting, denial, repression, doubt. But our bodies don't have any of that. Yeah. Our bodies remember everything. It knows its limitations. It does. Because its innate path is survival, right? So it's not going to do anything to hurt itself. We usually hurt ourselves with up here. So when it comes to emotions, I remind athletes that it's energy in motion. And any energy that gets stuck in our body inhibits our body to actually achieve its fullest state of performance. That all of a sudden gets their attention. Right. I have more energy in this body. I can tap. Yes, yeah. You do. Because it takes energy to hold it back. Oh, that's interesting. So at least I get buy-in. And then once that happens, then I actually ask them where they're feeling certain things in their body, right? So if anger, somebody feels it in different places. It's not like in traditional Chinese medicine that certain organs are related to certain emotions. And it's not always true. Like with athletes, like someone might get really pissed off and it's in their right shoulder, right? Or they might feel really sad and they'll feel just kind of gnarl up in their stomach, and they don't even realize it because they're so used to tensing and relaxing. And so we go through that exercise where is that in your body? Can you go there? I mean, then we use visualization and bringing the mind's eye to that space and asking questions of that part of your body. And through that inquiry, people are always so surprised at what comes up. Because sometimes it's, I fell off my bike and broke my leg when I was 6. Or shit, right before the game, I broke up with my boyfriend or girlfriend and I had to just stuff it. And I never really processed it because I had the endorphins of the game and then I just went on with my life kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
So there's this notion of mindful questions, and what I hear, Jennifer, so loud and clear, right, is that one of your goals when you work with somebody is to give them that space, right, to ask those questions. So this is gonna, I think, take us back a little bit intentionally. When did you feel the power start to come from asking those questions yourself, kind of into your own world, and what did it feel like when you started to?
Let's see, I have to put myself back there for a minute. I think, as I mentioned, like I really had an interesting relationship with my internal voice from a very young age, right? And I knew that regardless of what was going on, I was safe. And that there was something bigger than myself that I was tapped into. I was very fortunate to have somewhat of a spiritual life, right? That was invited in early through different conversations. I was really blessed with that. And that's probably another conversation for us to have offline. But, and so I think where it really started to show up was when I was laying in that hospital bed and sort of doing an internal inventory, if you will. Okay, how am I? I'm okay, right? Is everybody else okay? Yes, everybody else is okay. Am I the worst hurt? Yes, perfect. Because I have this internal belief, and I still do, that I'm superhuman and that I'm the strongest person in the room. And if I can handle it, I'll be dead. So I'll take on all the emotional stuff that's going on. And so it was that inventory of like, am I okay? Is everybody in my life okay? Then everything has a solution. And that really has served me throughout my life in everything that I've done. And especially as an athlete, like if you keep running and you're still breathing and you can still walk, then you're good. You can finish the race, like no problem.
Hey guys, I am so excited to announce that we have a special offer just for you guys as Omni Athlete podcast listeners. You guys rock. You are some of the most engaged members of this community. And as a reward, we are offering you guys a 20% discount on your tickets to this year's Sports Energy and Consciousness Festival. 20% off to join me and the entire Sports Energy and Consciousness team, including some incredible presenters, Olympians, former professional athletes, healers, spiritual teachers, coaches of all levels are going to be joining us this year in July in San Rafael, California for the Sports Energy and Consciousness Festival. And because you guys are the community that makes this all possible, we are offering you guys a 20% discount on your ticket to the festival. Just go to sportsenergyfestival.com/registration. And when you click through that, you'll go to Eventbrite. You'll have a chance to put in a code when you get your ticket. And the code to use is Omni Athlete. Use that code. You've got 20% off your ticket. I would love to see each and every single one of you guys there because you are what has made this possible, both Omni Athlete and the SEC group. The work that we are doing is possible because of the engaged, energized, and truly inspiring community that you guys are part of. And as a thank you, we wanted to offer this special discount to you guys and hope to see each of you at the 2018 festival, July 13th through 15th, San Rafael, California. Once again, the special code is Omni Athlete. Go to sportsenergyfestival.com/registration, get your ticket. And then when you're at Eventbrite, click the promo code Omni Athlete. Use that code, enter it in, and you will get 20% off your ticket. See everybody there. Let's get back to the show. So how does this is a big question intentionally, and big in the sense that it is very open, but this notion of safety, right? That seems so powerful. And I think the beauty of the space we create with a conversation like this is that we're talking about performance, but we're not talking about jumping higher or running faster, right? We're talking about all the pieces that go around it to allow our bodies to do that. So what is the role of safety in being able to find that peak performance state that we're all after?
Wow. That it's a matter of, you mentioned it earlier, letting go, right? There is a matter of letting go and faith, and that we are absolutely connected to something bigger than ourselves, and we will never be called upon to do anything or perform anything that we are not capable of doing because you were put in that position for some reason. Chip Conley calls it stumbling on serendipity. And I feel like my entire professional career has been stumbling on serendipity. I did not set out to be to be who I am and to do what I'm doing. Like you couldn't, no, not even. I was going to be a doctor. I had it all mapped out. And safety allows you to take the risks that you need to take in order to have the wins that you are wanting to have, that you are imagining that yourself to have. And safety can only be attained from my perspective and from what I've been doing when you trust yourself, that you know that there is no emotion too big for you to feel. There is no pain that'll take you out of the game. And that in actuality, the more you relax into that, the pain will subside, the dial down, right? Your breath regulation will stop, your heartbeat will relax, and then you might even be able to start to learn how to enter into those beautiful flow states and zones voluntarily and at your will, which is beautiful, which is what all of the different people who you've spoken with speak to. And so safety is a matter of trust in yourself and the opportunity to sit quietly with all of your emotions and know that you are strong enough and capable of holding them all and expressing them with wisdom and compassion for you and the others around you.
Safety is such an internal thing, right? And I'm going to ask this question in a different way because I want to see what comes up, because I find so many of us seek safety externally, right? We seek safety and for many good reasons, right? For reasons that experiences we've had, for moments of a lack of safety that have affected our view of what is possible in the world, but we seek externally this safety. So when you work with a client or you work with someone, what are some of the things that you might coach them on, guide them on, ask them to consider when you can tell that creating safety in their world in that internal sense would allow them to take a step forward?
Beautiful. So a lot of times, again, what's beautiful about the body is it brings something very tangible to an ambiguous conversation, right? And emotions are so different for everyone. And some people have ease in expressing anger, but have a very difficult time with sadness, or vice versa. And so safety is about making however a person shows up in a space be perfect. And to reiterate that everybody's feelings are absolutely 100% valid and there's no right or wrong. And then there's also the physical safety, right? So when you are an athlete, you need to know that you can go out on a limb and try something new and fail miserably and actually be applauded for that, right? And that you need to understand and to express to either your athlete or your client, right, that it's good to risk big as long as you know what is driving the risk. Yeah. If it's your ego, that may not have the results that you really want, and the stumbling that may occur as a result of that risk can ultimately get misinterpreted or the blame misdirected. Yeah. But if that risk is taken because somewhere deep inside you, you know that it's the right risk to take, because that'll push you and your teammates or the game to the next level, and you do it and something fumbles, no one's going to get back on you, because that'll be the safety that your coach and your team have created for you. And so it's that same context, whether you're in a therapy session, whether you're in a coaching session, whether you're on a team. It's the permission to explore the edges of your personal comfort zone, and that you are discovering those and finding those as a direct correlation to what's happening inside.
So now let's take one more left turn, but it's all related. So mindfulness and I paused there because I think this question could be very open and say, what does mindfulness mean in the context that you see it? But I think the question I'd like to ask first is, why does mindfulness matter to an athlete or to a coach?
Mindfulness is a term that has become quite expansive, right? It's no longer just what it once was. Mindfulness is this wonderful umbrella term. And for me, the way I see it being used today is that it's about being present. It's about being aware of who you are, how you show up, and how that affects the others that are in your space or that you're relating to, right? And so it's a matter of presence. And the more you get to know yourself, the more you know how your presence has a ripple effect on the others that you're relating to, the game that you're playing, or the meeting that you're leading. Right? And so mindfulness is something that I feel are talking a lot about in this digitized world, because we are so much in need of finding connection again, and that it's getting lost. And so I feel that the more digitized we get, the more robotic we get, the more we get reliant on all the tech and fitness and sport, the more ritualized, the more connected, the more conscious we need to be of our physical beings on a heart and mind-body connection. So mindfulness is very much, for me, like the counterpart to all of that tech.
Yeah. So what can we do to bring more of that mindfulness, and using, as you said, this very large term to bring that presence? What can we do as, let's just take the hat of an athlete. What can we do to bring that into our lives more readily and consistently?
Great. So as you know, like there's the health and fitness industry has exploded, right? And so athletes are the people who play on the fields and are competitive and are out there. But we're all athletes really, because so many of us are going into the amazing boutique sport, the high intensity trainings and the yogas and the spinnings and all the things that are out there. And those are all amazing opportunities. Any movement, any body-based practice, right? To now take the language that is being invited in there and say, get out of your head, trust your body, right? Get into your body, push your body that one step further. I bet you can't do one more rep. You can't go 1 second faster. You can't go 2 minutes longer. All of those places where you're challenging your mental limitations are opportunities for you to throw yourself into your body. The harder the lift, the longer the run, the harder the intensive interval training. You have to get out of your head, because if you're in your head and you're thinking about your shopping list, you're going to hurt yourself. And so if we can, as coaches, as trainers, as instructors in these environments, start to invite a different conversation, a different language, which is so critical for this, into that space to be inspirational and transformational, I think those are wonderful gateways into bringing more attention to that. And the invitation at the end of that to say, if you broke through a mental limitation here, imagine what you can do if you were in that same space in another challenging circumstance in your life. Wow. Now we're starting to have the ripple effect, right? And because so many people say, I don't have any time to meditate. I don't have any time to do anything else in my life. All I can do is go to work, see my family, work out. Well, great. There are opportunities in each one of those experiences to bring that connection to yourself and to the people around you in a much more present, real, deep way.
There's this odd dichotomy almost. Athletes take for granted. I think we all take for granted in the athletic experience and you've already mentioned this, the wisdom we develop, right? The connection that we almost naturally stumble upon as we're performing, as we're competing, but we don't necessarily value it outside of sport in the way we could. Or like you just said, we don't translate it very well at times. We don't necessarily see the connection. What have you found that's been helpful in building that bridge, so to speak, between what it feels like when I'm competing, when I'm running, when I'm challenging myself in that moment of competition versus just a regular day where I'm behind the wheel of my car or I'm walking down the street to go get groceries, whatever the case may be?
Yeah. Back when I was training, it wasn't considered wise or the most effective way of training if you had things in your ears or listening or watching to anything. What I was encouraged to do was tune into your breath. Like Jeff Galway and the book, Book of Running and the Marathon is like, tune into the rhythm of your heart. Find your own internal drummer, right? Or on the bike, listen to the whir of the wheel. And if you're in a pack, you feel the peloton. And so there was this natural integrative place where they're asking you to connect with your body, your breath, and your breath is like key, right? And so as an athlete, you know all about this. When you're stressed out before a game, what do? You regulate your arousal level through breath, right? We used to measure it as simply with biofeedback, right? The faster your heart, you want to slow it down, longer the breaths, to speed it up, shorter the breaths. And so I often tell athletes, if you're feeling that same heart race, like the nerves before a game, what do? And they tell me, and I teach them breath, all these different breath practices, which is in yoga, pranayama, but like, it's just all there. It's just, And then I say, okay, well, if you're nervous before you give a speech, or if, you're getting uptight at the back behind a wheel, breath. So breath. And it's such a beautiful thing to get people in touch with. When do they feel they're at their best? What is the rate of their heart? Because some people need it faster, some people need it slower, and you just dial it up or dial it down, and you use the rate of the breath to do that. And so for me, that has been one of the most valuable tools that I think that I could give somebody in like an immediate fix, or not fix, I hate that word, but skill that they could learn in order to translate that.
There comes this awareness with that breath, right? That allows us, and as you were sharing, what comes to my mind is how easy it is to have something in the background constantly, right? So even, let alone at the gym or in practice, right? If I'm going for a run, or if I'm going to go hit the weight room, I'm going to have headphones in, or I'm going to have music in the gym playing, or there's going to be something on the TV in front of me. It's so easy for us to have these other pieces of stimulation, and so rare that we really just allow everything else to fall away and have our breath and our body at the same place. And as I say it, I go, wow, what an amazing state that would be. Yet it's so counter to what we experience.
Right. I have, it's really interesting. There was a time when, before I would go out for a run, I would have to stick a chewing gum in my mouth, because like to get out to run sometimes, like it just feels like it takes every cell in your being to get out there, right? And then after the first 5 or 10 minutes, you're like, what took me so long to get out here? The gum's gone. And I just feel like I can relax my upper body. I can allow my thoughts to unravel. I can just get a sense of like what's happening, right? And I check in with different parts of my body. I'm like, what's happening over there? And I feel anxiety come up, and I'll be like, what's that about? And I'm like, is there anything I can do about it? And so I have like this little like list of, so when I get home, I just have to do those things and I'll be 100% good. But it's a pretty magical space, and I would love to invite just everyone to try not working out, not training, with all of the distraction, and just see how different that is. And it's tuning into whatever's happening around you, tune into what's happening inside you, because it'll change it. It will change your workout. And you might hate me because you might have to go down a few things in weights, a few pounds of weights. You may find it a little different, but the effects are magical for me, right? And it starts to change the routine of your training into a ritual. You just can't wait to get out there and find out what else is going on.
What is the difference to you between ritual and routine? I think that's an important one to define.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest shifts that I made early on, because I was really very disciplined. Most athletes are, right? Like we have our routines, we know what we're going to eat. We get out of bed, we have this like morning routine, and then we go train, and like this whole routine. It was very regimented, and it served me for a really long time. But what it didn't do is open my heart and connect me to something bigger. And I pushed through pain that I probably shouldn't have pushed through. And I wasn't able to listen because it was on my schedule. I had to do it. And so then I started to realize, as I studied to be a Kabbalistic meditation teacher, that it's actually the intention behind the routine. So then I started thinking about, well, why am I doing all this training really? Like really? And when I didn't really shift anything in the routine itself, I shifted my thought around it, the intention around it. I did a whole paradigmatic shift, if you will. Yeah. And I then thought of it as a ritual, preparing myself for this amazing physical experience. And then my trainings, like I got faster. My pain dialed down significantly. I was able to do things that I would never have allowed myself to do, because my mind was like, I have to do this, and this is the numbers I have to hit, and this is how many laps I have to do. Instead, I was just like, I'm just going to go for it. I ran further. I swam longer. And so just that shift, nothing else shifted. I didn't change anything. I didn't change my diet, nothing. Just the idea that it was I had to into I choose to, because I have this intention of meeting this goal that is really meaningful to me.
It's so fascinating to me when principles that are becoming so popular outside of sport work their way into a conversation around peak performance, right? So what came to mind right there is Simon Sinek, right? Start with why. This is become practically, in terms of marketing and branding, the Bible for so many people, right? Start with why. What's your why? And what it feels like what just happened was you're saying, look, when I found a why and really got in touch with the why I'm training, competing, doing anything, it got more energizing. I tapped into a different gear. And that's really energizing to me as I hear that, because then it's like, okay, there's a toolkit out there. There's a way for us to apply that.
Yeah, there is. And I fell in love with Simon the first time I heard him on TED Talk. I was like, yes, that's it, the golden circle.
Yeah. It's just, it's such an interesting, there's this natural tendency, I think, in sport, and we do this in life. We probably don't do as good a job as we can of seeing the patterns from a bigger scale, right? And saying, okay, if it works over here, it probably works over there too, because life really is a lot of these similar patterns and principles. But that in particular, that book for athletes can be probably really powerful. As we sit here and talk about it, I go, oh my gosh, of course, like that would be a great way, right?
Yeah. Why are you training? Why are you? Because that would help so much. Because if you got injured, there would be other things in your life that will have also gone towards that goal, right? Because you would never put all of your attention and intention and time, energy, and resources into one thing in order to attain that goal if it's really important to you, right? And so for me, when you did my introduction, you called me the OMPowered athlete. And what's important by that is that as an empowered athlete, that means that I embody the power that it takes to get me to where I want to go. That's great. And that's connected to me and my physical being. But my physical being sometimes has limitations because my mind is a part of it. And so an empowered athlete is someone who's fully empowered and driven by something bigger than themselves, whether it's their team, whether it's their city or their state or their country in the Olympics, right? Or some big league aspiration. Yeah. If you can find that connection to that, it's magic. It is magic.
This has been incredible, Jennifer, and I'm feeling the energy rise as we go, which is always just that gets me excited. So before I ask my final question, where can these guys go to connect with you online?
Good question. So I'm in the middle of a transition. I closed my indoor cycling, rowing, and TRX studio in December. Oh, wow. And we're taking the concepts behind the training for transformation that we did there, and we're blowing it out beyond the walls. Nice. And so if you just remember OMPowered, OMPower, will be coming out probably either in fall or the beginning of January. Nice. And you'll be able to find us there. But in the meantime, we're taking a little step back so we can come fully loaded.
There's so much beauty and wisdom in going backwards to go forward at times, right? We take this for granted. Wow, very, very exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
So our final question. This show is called Omni Athlete, and we want to understand what it takes to be the ultimate mind, body, and spirit competitor. So the last question is, what does it mean to you to be an Omni Athlete?
Beautiful. I believe it's everything that we've talked about, right? We have to attend to the physical body. We have to make sure that we nourish it, we replenish it, we train it, and really understand the skill set that it requires. But we also have to understand that the mind is a big part of that. And that the more we can study that connection and the openness and train the mind just as much as we're training the body, and then open ourselves to the possibility that we're doing something much greater than ourselves, that we are connected to something bigger. And as long as we have all three of those aspects integrated into our training, there is nothing that you cannot do.
Wow. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for being on the show. This has been energizing. It's been incredible. And the word that comes to mind, guys, as you're listening is power. So keep OMPower in your brain and be ready when Jennifer launches this to dive as deep as you possibly can into the ecosystem they create, because what you can feel, and I can feel it right now, and I know you guys can feel it too. Power is not something we always understand, but there's different forms of power. And in this interview and in the work Jennifer does, not just in healing, but in training and what she shares through OMPower, you guys are going to learn there's different ways to power ourselves. And when you learn those different tools and methods for understanding what power we use and how to use it, like Jennifer talked about literally 5 minutes ago, your performance is just going to level up in so many different ways. So keep OMPower fresh in your brain. When it comes out, we'll be sure to share it. Keep it top of mind. And until next time, guys, thank you for listening to this episode of Omni Athlete. What is up, Omni Athletes? Thank you guys for watching another episode of Omni Athlete. If this content is adding value to your lives, guys, please like and share and subscribe in every way you can. Share our content. That helps us grow this community, which is really ultimately what we are after right now. So please like, comment, share, tell your friends about what we're doing. If it's adding value, please share it. And if it's not, tell us so we can really improve this content and make sure it's something that you guys want and want to see. Coming up, guys, in July, I'm super excited to announce we have the 2018 Sports Energy and Consciousness Festival. It's going to be in San Rafael, California. This is an absolutely incredible event for a lot of reasons. The main one being you get to actually engage with so many of the people that we've had on the show, so many of the leaders in sports, energy, and consciousness. The speakers are absolutely incredible, and the community is even more incredible. So I cannot encourage you guys enough. Get to this festival. It is going to be an experience that transforms your vision of athletics, your ability to achieve peak performance, to find flow, to awaken an expanded level of consciousness in your performance that you just cannot find anywhere else. It's truly the tip of the iceberg, and you guys want to be part of it. July 13th through 15th in San Rafael, California. Go to sportsenergyfestival.com to get your tickets today before they run out. It's going to go quick, guys. Get there. sportsenergyfestival.com, July 13th through 15th. We'll see you there.